Right, we can come to order. Good afternoon. I think from the number of people here at such short notice, I think speaks volumes as to the level of community concern, not just at the incident on Saturday, shocking though that was, but also some of the wider issues that I know within the farming community, but within rural communities more generally, have been felt. And that's why I, in conjunction with Charlie and Tim, felt it was important to have a very urgent public meeting in order to give an opportunity for everyone to have their say. And I'm extremely grateful that within 48 hours of the incident on Saturday, the Chief Constable, the Fenland area commander, so Nick, Ben, but also councillors, and Darrell as Police and Crime Commissioner are all here. And I think the fact that within 48 hours of that incident, you've got the Chief Constable, the Police and Crime Commissioner here to hear from you directly, both speaks to the seriousness of what happened on Saturday, but also for a recognition that lessons need to be learnt, and it is important to hear from you directly today. If I go just from a house point of view, given how many people we've got, if when we open it up to questions, people can be succinct and sort of relatively brief in their comments, whether it's comments or questions, because obviously that allows us to get through more people, because I know a lot of people will want to be heard. I'll let each of the people at the table introduce themselves rather than take up additional time myself. But what I wanted just to start with by, as we're in Manea, giving Charlie as the councillor representing Manea an opportunity just to set the scene in terms of the incident on Saturday, and I know the feedback and the conversations that he's had, to then briefly hear from those on the panel at the start, but then give the majority of the time that we have over to you to hear from you directly. This is your opportunity with the Chief Constable, with the Police and Crime Commissioner here, to hear from you and also to get an update from them in terms of what steps they're going to do, both with the investigation specifically, but more generally based on what they hear from you today. So that's so what I wanted to say at the outset. But Charlie, perhaps just in terms of setting the scene and the conversations I know you've been having, if you want to do that, and then perhaps Nick, if I can start by then inviting you and Darrell as Commissioner to respond, and then we'll open it up more widely.
Thank you. First, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for coming to Manea. Some of you won't have been here before, others of you live in the village, but we welcome you all. Unfortunately, Saturday was a very sad day. We saw the village really taken over by idiots. I think that's the only way to describe them. Had there been anybody walking in their way, believe me, today, we'd be standing here mourning a member of Manea. So, going forward from that, we understand that this microphone's not very good. We understand this started off somewhere in Cisco's garage. The perpetrators of about 30 cars then came along the 16-foot onto Morris's farm, had approximately half an hour there, from what we can understand, having a picnic, and then left there to sort of to continue their devilment, and then went into Fodder Farm, went across Richard Sears' land, has done quite a lot of damage, extensive damage there. Also, there's a vehicle in the ditch from there, and then come back into the village. The first I knew of this was actually when I was standing on Westfield Road, and all of a sudden, just all hell broke loose. There were 10 4x4s came right round the S-bend. They had not got a care in the world of whether they were on the road or whether they were on the pavement. And they went out of the village doing stupid speed. It's 30 there, they must have been doing 60 plus. As they went past, you could see they were wearing balaclavas, they had got masks on, and they got sunglasses on, and one had definitely got a pickaxe handle as well. So anybody who'd got in their way, you know what was the outcome of that was going to be. Within a minute, there was another wave of 4 to 5 vehicles, much the same again, followed again by 2 more, and at that point the post office, the postman actually pulled up in his van. He was on the other side of the road, so the road was actually blocked, and the last vehicle came round, straight up on the curb, onto the footpath and straight past, and then went down where the houses are, the long length of houses, and he was just pushing people out of the way. How somebody didn't get killed, badly injured, I'll never know. Hence why we're all here today. I understand it then migrated from there around Chatteris. I believe it went to Piemore as well. So today is sort of our way of talking to the police, understanding what's gone on from there, and hopefully we can build on so it doesn't happen again. I'll pass you back over now to the Chief Constable.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. I'll just reiterate, first of all, the comments made by Steve on my left and also Charlie in terms of the number of people in the room. I don't think I've been to a public engagement meeting with so many people in the room for quite a period of time, which, as quite rightly, it demonstrates your strength of feeling of the incidents over the weekend here in Manea and across the Fenland area. As I have been introduced, yes, I am the Chief Constable, Nick Dean. I've been in post here in Cambridgeshire since 2018, and before that I was in Norfolk Constabulary, and in fact part of my career did police out on the Fenland area, particularly down in Market Terrington during the aftermath of the Tony Martin. So within the rural policing environment, I don't come here uninitiated in terms of some of the concerns that you actually will no doubt and quite rightly voice this afternoon. But I'm here to listen, so I'm not going to take too much of the time of the meeting because it's important that we hear your concerns. But I thought it'd be interesting just to, as with anything in this day and age, misinformation is rife. We've seen that in recent times in the sort of tragic events in Southport quite recently. And the aftermath of various other, both local, regional, national, global incidents where misinformation tends to spark rumour. So I thought I'd set the context of what we knew as a constabulary and what I've been briefed on. I was first notified of this incident yesterday morning, and clearly throughout the constabulary we had dealt with it throughout the day. That assessment of how we dealt with it, of course, I will move on to. But the context of this stemmed back to late last week when we got a single strand of intelligence to say that there would be a large gathering of hair coursing personnel, people, however you would describe them, criminals, organised crime. We could go on, couldn't we? But the single strand of intelligence gave us very little information indeed. We have to make judgments, we have to make assessments on the resources and of that intelligence. We tried to do some cross-border searches, of which we did with our neighbouring forces in Lincolnshire, Norfolk, into Suffolk, etc., try and expand on that single piece of intelligence, and actually through our community neighbourhood teams as well. But it unfortunately didn't tend to suggest anything other than a hair coursing event. Of course, as we know, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, that the result of that single strand of intelligence led us to a very different picture 24, 48 hours later. What we did do on that assessment of that intelligence, we did assess it, we did put some preemptive measures in place, such as a dispersal order, which was assessed, assigned, and that was against the whole of the county. Now in the legislation, the dispersal order, which gives us the power to move people on without actually really committing any offence, reasonableness, that they're going to disrupt the quality of life of individuals in a community, was very thin indeed. But we did put it in place, and we did put it in place for a 24-hour period to be reviewed as we went along. We equally put on extra resources, and I'm the first one to sit here today to say those resources were not enough. But we did have to make an assessment on how many of those resources we needed based upon that small amount of intelligence. The intelligence suggested that it wasn't going to happen here in Manea. In fact, in this side of Fenland. The initial intelligence, as I understand it, led us to a location in Crowland, which, as you know, is some considerable distance away. And that was where the initial resources were centred. But it quickly became apparent on Saturday morning that obviously that location, as I said, under misinformation, was incorrect. But the speed of response and the ability for us to move across the county with those resources in order to get ahead or even trying to intervene with these individuals who caused havoc across your community was very difficult indeed. I hope you agree that the good work that we do across the constabulary, especially through the Rural Crime Action Team, who I know most, or a majority hopefully, of you have interacted with, we try and do a really good job in maintaining the rural communities as a neighbourhood team in very difficult situations. It's not for me to sit here for you, to tell you how rural the community is, how hard it is to transit across the county, etc. But we do our very best in terms of the resources that we have. Nonetheless, I'm not here giving any excuse whatsoever. As I said, very quickly we became of information that the incidents were occurring across the county, and in fact the scale of that issue really escalated, with 30 calls coming into the call centre in a very quick period of time. Of course, that's very difficult to actually respond to, given the fact that it is a Saturday. Those of you, if we, I'll speak for myself, shall I, in terms of my youth, remember those Friday nights. And Saturday mornings within policing is a very busy experience, with cell blocks, crime scenes, etc., and dealing with very serious crime needs to be dealt with on top of daily business. However, that's not an excuse. So first, I accept, and really do accept, and I only have to look at the audience today to accept the impact that this has had on the communities, not just here in Manea, but widespread across the Fenland area. I really do understand. I can't put myself in your shoes, but I do understand the frustration of how we responded as an organisation. And I, as the head of that organisation, take that responsibility. That's why I'm here today. I wouldn't have missed this for anything in terms of being responsible and being in front of you this afternoon. And finally, in one respect, I apologise that we couldn't have done more, or we didn't do more. The final request, as Charlie has outlined, is that I think the way forward is varied. But I ask you to work with us, not against us. I've said about the Rural Crime Action Team, which does a fantastic job, of the local neighbourhood policing sergeant with me in the audience, who some of you may well have had an interaction with, and as has been introduced, on my right hand side is Ben Martin, who's the district commander for Peterborough and Fenland. My commitment is that we will do something here. We're already doing something, and I have chaired a meeting this morning alongside Ben with one of my assistant chief constables, to try and piece together the information which we knew, which we could have done, which we did and which we didn't do, in order, as Steve has identified, is to quickly learn the lessons so that we can prevent this happening again, or be, at the very least, in a position to respond in the best possible way we can. Already we've made 2 interactions this morning with those people who were involved, and they have been dealt with this morning across the county. To assure you, as part of that meeting this morning, there were various lines which I've set up. One is a dedicated investigative team. This is not just a single team who, for instance, allocating it out to the Rural Crime Action Team. This has shown a force-level response to this incident. That investigative team is backed up by intelligence officers who are already trying to identify the extensive footage which has been submitted to the organisation over the weekend and is still coming in. And as I said, 2 interactions with those individuals have already been made this morning. I've personally met with that team. I've personally met with Chris Arnold, the local sergeant, and as I said, I'm here today to give my commitment that we will do something about this, and we will do everything possible to identify that criminality which harmed your community over the weekend. My ask is that you send in that information. The press releases have gone out for the contact details of where you can submit that information, that intelligence, that footage, and we will do everything possible to follow those lines of inquiry as we move forward, as well as, of course, as review exactly what went on over the weekend, so that we as an organisation, and not just us as a constabulary here in Cambridgeshire, but across the East Anglia region, can actually work better together. We do work better together already over the previous years that I've been in post. The intelligence flow between ourselves, Lincolnshire, Norfolk, Suffolk and across the region in rural crime has enhanced considerably. Clearly we act on intelligence, we act on information, and sometimes we act on just our gut feeling. On occasions we get it wrong. On this occasion, on reflection, on hindsight, we perhaps got it wrong. That's why I'm here today. But it's about actually learning from it. And I understand that, you know, you'll be angry, you'll be frustrated, you'll have lost property, you'll have lost crops, you'll have vehicles damaged, etc. Some of you may have been assaulted in terms of that criminality. That's unacceptable. Those criminals should be brought to justice. And you have my commitment that we will do everything possible in order to secure those convictions. But I will temper that with the fact that there is a criminal justice system. There is evidence that we need. And simply submitting a photo or a set of footage clearly needs to be developed and put into an evidential setting. So just bear with us in terms of that footage that you submit. But I can assure you that any footage that you do submit, any photos, any information, any intelligence with the teams that are going about will be considered very seriously. Chris and his team have already put in a community impact assessment. What does that mean in lay terms? What does it mean for you? It means that extra patrols, extra vigilance will be within this area over the next few weeks. I've spoken to the Assistant Chief Constable this morning and indeed this afternoon in order to ensure that we have sufficient resources at the weekend to preempt any return of that criminality across this county, which, as I said, is not acceptable to me, and I'm sure it's not acceptable to you. So thank you for listening to me for the last 5 or 10 minutes. Hopefully that reassures you that I do take it seriously. That's why I'm here. That's why I've given you my commitment. I'll just hand over to Ben, just in case I've missed anything off that introduction.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. There's not much more I wanted to say other than the Chief Constable said. I echo his sentiments about working with you to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. And what we've got in place at the moment, I was just going to expand a little bit about the investigation that the Chief Constable's talked about. So I've got a senior investigating officer now working in this district who has drawn together an investigation team, and he's going through all the footage, all of the incidents that have been reported, crimes that have occurred, and scanning to see where we can, what we're taking forwards. He's having some very early conversations with the lawyers at the Crown Prosecution Service already, and linking in with the regional hare coursing rural wildlife crime investigations operation Galileo, and linking in with linkage in Norfolk, Suffolk, as the Chief said. That detective inspector is going to be on the case with his small team he's put together now, and depending on the nature of what we see, we'll flex that team and make it bigger if we need to, because we're committed to getting justice. Hopefully we should have some good results based on intelligence to share with you very shortly over the next few days. I can't promise anything just yet about that, because as the Chief says, we need to let time take its course and work very thoroughly to get this done. But from a community policing point of view, we're committed to do the best we can to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Ben. And I think to hear from you that this is a force level response was one of the key things, just in terms of the seriousness and the level of focus. And I think that's an important point to hear from you both. Darrell, as Police and Crime Commissioner.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Charlie, for setting up this meeting today. Clear to me that there is a real sense of tension within our rural community following what's happened over the weekend. I get the significant impact it's had. I've spoken to a lot of people, as you can imagine, over the past 24 hours. What happened was abhorrent. It's criminality, absolute criminality. Just one thing, my job as Police and Crime Commissioner, I'm not the police, I hold the police to account. I spoke to the Chief Constable as soon as I found out about this. I will continue to have oversight and hold to account in relation to the ongoing investigation. And more importantly, next step in ensuring that we do more to protect our rural communities. It's been a priority of mine. It's been the police and crime plan. The Chief Constable mentioned the rural crime team. It's an operational decision, but a pretty big red line for me that we need that in place. Clearly there's more that we can do. I will continue to work with Countryside Watch, who I fund significantly, with colleagues from the NFU, more importantly you. I spend a lot of my time in rural communities and on farms, and I will continue to do that because quite often it's you, good people, that have some of the solutions. The other part of my role is around the resources, actually the funding for the constabulary. As I say, we do have a rural crime team, but I am going to say this here, because it is important. I'm doing my very, very best, but we are one of the poorest funded police forces in this country. And these are, political decisions about how police forces are funded from central government. The reality is, we are right down there at the bottom with Lincolnshire, as it happens. I will continue, whenever I see the policing minister have that conversation, I will continue to lobby the Home Secretary, and I'm supported by our Member of Parliament here and elsewhere across the county as well. That, I know, won't make you feel any better, but I promise you I will continue to work with you, and I promise you that I will hold the constabulary to account for A, ensuring that we don't have a repeat of this, and B, to do their very best in finding those abhorrent criminals who cause havoc in our communities and bring them to justice. I will leave it there because I think it's more important that we hear from you.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, I'm Matt Smith. I farm at Ramsey. I was previously NFU Cambridgeshire Chair up until this February, and I've been asked to come this evening to represent the NFU because Alison Morris, the present Chair, is at a national meeting today. So anybody who knows Alison, I can assure you this is going right to the top to NFU this week. First and foremost, I'm a farmer, and I understand what everybody, landowner or people living in the community, fear from this. This weekend, we were fortunate to be the other end of the 40 foot, so we didn't have any direct problems. But over my 4 years as county chair, we met regularly with the police, as Dan's touched on. Every time, I can guarantee you, hair coursing was raised. This horrendous weekend you've just had, in my opinion, was something that we knew was going to happen sometime. Everybody in this room has been affected by hair coursing over the last few years. So it's important that it doesn't get washed into one weekend as far as I can see. Like I say, the key is to have your voice. So I'm not going to say any more because I don't think that's what you've come to hear. But please be rest assured. And the one thing I will say, keep reporting it in. It's the one thing I'm told all the time. Frustrating as it is, we're not going to get possibly any answers quickly, but please stay with the police guys. They are working tirelessly to try and get around the problem, which isn't all their own making. Thank you.
And Councillor Tim Taylor, I think you wanted to come in because it wasn't just mainly affected as well as other parts of it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Now, I'm here today in two parts, really. I'm here as the Rural and Farming Chairman of Fenland District Council, but I'm also here as the leader and the English Chairman of a new farming group called Pro Farmers United. Now, what we've seen this weekend is completely and utterly unacceptable. It's something that I've never seen before, although I predicted many years ago that when the ban came in, something was going to happen for a continuation, but we've never seen anything like this. In my opinion, there has been so many failings this weekend from the police. That is so worrying, and I mean really worrying. There's been 2 garages robbed, there's fire engines being damaged, there's fire equipment being damaged, there's cars being set on fire, and yet this morning some of the coursers were still back in the area and throwing a brick through somebody's car window. But I do know the police was on scene this morning, and I'm not really surprised, obviously, after what happened Saturday and knowing that this was going to be happening tonight. So any of you guys out there that don't know me as a councillor and you're in my area, please grab me afterwards, we can exchange details because I am here for you as a councillor, there's nothing to show. I'm here with you to work through this system, try and get these issues sorted out. How we're going to achieve getting this criminality stopped, I have no idea at the moment. This is a complete different thing that I have never ever seen. They've really upped their game, they're up their antes, but we do know now it is a game of cat and mouse to them. And there's as much money on the table for escaping and evading the police as what there actually is on betting on the dogs nowadays. So it is scary, they've upped the game. But how we can compete with that, I don't know. But I'm going to hand over to, was it Ben, did you say, Charlie? What it was? Okay, so I think now we're going to start with questions and answers, please, are we? Yeah, so guys, please fire away to any of us and we'll try and answer.
Charlie's going to go around the room.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take batches of 3 questions. I'm going to do 3 farming questions first, and there are 3. The first gentleman has just put his hand up, which is Richard Sears, who had the damage at the enemy. Do I like that? Do you need a microphone?
It'd be staged. Good.
Is that better? Hello. No, I just want to point out one serious point is that I farm in Fodder Fen with my cousin Charlie. Hello, I haven't.
Robert, my brother Richard hasn't taken
over the farm
yet.
But what I would seriously, bit more. But what I'd really like to say is that I haven't witnessed anything like this in all my travels, which I've been lucky to do, whether it be Africa or wherever. I haven't seen lawlessness like this anywhere in the world. I had 25 vehicles, 4x4s, muddied up, driving at me on my narrow road, single road, opposite my house. Me being the belligerent guy that I am, I'm certainly not going to hide behind my door. I went out to face them because I think that's what needs to be done. Somebody has to do that, Chief Constable. And so I was going to do that. Hence, my car got rammed. I'm not too bothered about that, and I'm not too bothered about superficial damage. It was that our property, and there'll be many people like this, has been violated. That's what I really don't like. And just to follow on briefly, obviously we made 99 calls. Hello?
On one of those calls,
Can you hear me? Yeah. On one of those calls, they said the police would be there within 3 to 4 hours. That was on Saturday morning. I'm still waiting. That's not good enough. And in the evening, just to cap that, I received a text message to say, this is your crime number. This will not be investigated anymore. It will be filed. And I'm sorry. I realise you have difficulties. The RCAT team are doing excellent work. But you have failed this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Is Leo Butler here? Leo Butler? Ah. Right, I'm going to pass you over to Leo. And you had major issues.
Prearranged, isn't it? Well, they know the names. 3 names, I think. We're only calling 3 people who they want to call.
Again, same as Richard, I was driven at pretty much by...
Why don't we go to the front of the names?
I was driven at pretty much by 25 cars, told by the police at my 999 call, were they actively coursing, which they weren't, they were just ploughing up my fields, 25 of them again. Again, I was given a reference number that evening, saying essentially the same thing, that it's not going to be investigated. But what I'd like to know is, where were the police? No helicopters, no sirens, no cars, nothing. Nothing. And at some point, someone's got to realise that if the police ain't going to carry a can, we've got to. And that's about all I've got to say.
Right, next person.
Can I answer that? Sorry, just jump in a minute, because that point about the policing, right? What you need to do now is actually tell us what you actually did on that day. What police?
Right, can we get, when we get the last question, we'll put that through at the same time. Jonathan White. Jonathan, can you just tell us what happened to you on your land well, please.
We've just cut all our wheat up down Christchurch. I wasn't at Christchurch at the time, but apparently they cut through the village, smashed gates, and there was nothing to be seen. So they've tore the land up. I've been in the village for 50 years, and I've never ever felt so fed up with nothing being done. I've rang every time. It's now getting worrying. You can't even walk your dog because you're worried about somebody coming. And I was on my push bike to see what damage they'd done on Sunday. I had two guys coming towards me, and I thought, they're not local, and they got a dog with them, and you just don't know who you are. You don't know what's about round the corner in your own village. I've got children, and workers, and you just don't know what you're going to be put through next. And you're either with farmers, you've got to leave your gates open for you've got transport coming in and out, but you've got to be a person on the gate, continuous.
Back to you, Chief Constable.
Yeah, thanks very much, and thanks for the excellent questions there. And as I said at the beginning, I didn't anticipate anything other than frustration and anger directed at myself. That's why I'm here, so I take that on the chin. The sort of association with violation and a confrontation I can understand. I just reassure you that the police are not going to back down from this. It's not a case that we won't confront. I do put out on, the sort of reassurance that the sort of practicality of you confronting these people, but us as a constabulary, that's our job. Our job is to save life, to prevent and detect crime. And that's what we're about, and that's what we do to the best of our ability. On some occasions, we don't do it to the best of our ability, and that's a question I've asked within the organisation this morning. I get the 999 calls. We have been under criticism as a constabulary around our call handling. His Majesty's Inspectorate highlighted that to us. On this weekend, around these calls, I have instigated a review around the 999 call handling. But overall, we have improved in terms of our call handling. That doesn't excuse this weekend. I'm not here to excuse it. I'm giving you a general concept. But in answer to the question around where were resources on that day, that is a very good question. One which I asked yesterday, one which I asked this morning, and I will get the answers to. But what I can assure you is that we were dealing, this is serious criminality, as the Commissioner has said, as I have said, as Ben has said, as everyone else accepts within here, but it wasn't the only serious criminality that was going on across the county at that particular time. So my resources were busy. I'm not here defending them. They were busy. They were dealing with a high number of incidents. Across the Fenland area, there were 30 extra calls in than we anticipate within a very short period of time. Across the county for the whole weekend, if you exclude the calls that no doubt many of you in the room experienced, it was a high demand weekend. So I reiterate, and I'll probably say again during this meeting, I'm not here sitting making excuses. I'm giving you the reality of policing across this county. And the Commissioner made a very good point, and I'm not going to get political, but we are one of the lowest funded forces, and per head of population, the number of resources that I have is fairly low. So I have to make some judgment decisions. I make them to the best of my ability, and as I said in my opening, sometimes I have to make that on very thin intelligence, and not go with what the intelligence suggests, but what my gut feeling is. And on this occasion, we did a combination of both. And I'm not sitting here saying we got it right. Clearly, from your personal experiences and from the feelings within this room, we need to do better, and I accept that.
Yeah, obviously lessons need to be learned. And we all know that the farming industry is in serious trouble at the moment, and there's been a lot of damage done. But actually we've got one farmer sat in this room at the moment who's actually admitted things are that bad, but yes, a farmer does own a bicycle. And that's something we've never heard of. We get the old phrase, you never see a farmer on a bike. Well, actually, he's just admitted he's got one.
Thank you. So we'll take 3 more questions. I want 2 gentlemen.
So Matthew Latter from Sutton Gold. Similar story. 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon, we had 13 4x4s, and I counted over 70 people just literally took over our farm from 1 o'clock through till 4:30. I called 999 3 times during that time. I updated the Countryside Watch CCW app probably every 15 minutes with a what 3 words location of where they were on the farm. We didn't have any response at all, absolutely zero. My family, my young 7-year-old daughter was crying. She was absolutely petrified. They were literally at our back gate, surrounding our garden, just literally tearing the place up, took over the whole farm. My question is, how bad does it have to get before we get a response? Is 70 people and 13 vehicles? We've had every single gate smashed and broken, every concrete block's been moved. We've had to rectify that today, but 4 vehicles dumped on the farm, 2 dumped, 1 stuck, 1 burnt out, that we're going to have to deal with it. How bad does it have to get before we get to see someone? I'm yet to see a police officer yet.
Charlie.
Thank you. I now hand you over to Adam. Adam and I were actually standing together when this took place.
Hi there, thank you. I just want to try and take some of the emotion out of this, but as I said a minute ago, we need to know specifics. And you can't say to us now, I haven't got them, I'm trying to get them. You know these things. You know what officers you had on patrol. You know what officers were sent out to those. You know what resources you've got, whether it be helicopters, whether it be stingers, whatever it is, you know this information. And that's what we need here now. That's what you're prepared for, and that's what you need to give people. But as someone also said, you know, you're looking at a can of worms here, because you get this wrong, and you will have another Tony Martin or something like that on your hands. You know, and this is the problem that you want to deal with.
Thank you, Adam. And now hand over to David Connor, FDC for March, and also a county councillor.
Yeah, good afternoon everybody. Just for the Chief Constable, where's these helicopters? We've got several helicopters in practice. Well, we had one this morning, didn't we, go up? So, if we had one this morning, where was it Saturday, Sunday?
Don't want to speak now.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, the first question, Matthew, you know, how bad does it need to get? We should have responded. There's nothing more serious than what you experienced over the weekend, and we should have responded. We did respond in certain circumstances, but clearly the people in the room didn't get a response as you know, as I expected. If you want to go into the specifics about what my officers were dealing with, then I have a weekly Monday senior leadership team of where they give me the highlights. So on Saturday morning we had 49 resources on response across the county. This morning I had an update on what happened in the serious crime categories across the organisation. So just as a flavour, we dealt with 1 death in a prison. We dealt with 1 stranger rape. We dealt with 2... We dealt with...
Keep it down. Yeah, let the man speak.
We dealt with serious assaults, 2 being the 10 murders. That's just giving you a flavour of what's happened in the county. Now, what I sound like an old record. That's not an excuse that we didn't respond to you. I'm not defending it. We should have responded, and I accept that, and I take that responsibility as the Chief Constable. As with the helicopters, the helicopters is a national service. We don't have one here in Cambridgeshire, nor does any other force. Those resources are assessed on a national basis, depending on what's going nationally. And so, if a request went in, then that would have been assessed against a whole host of other incidents which were going on nationally, some of which I just do not know the answers to because I don't have the national context of what happened over the weekend in that detail on helicopter resources.
So you don't know if a helicopter was actually requested?
I don't, no, not sitting here.
You don't know how many officers went out to this? You know? Do you not have any of that information? I just think you should have all of this information to hand. You should have it straight away. You shouldn't be waiting on it, you know?
I accept your point of view. Just let me hand over to Ben.
Just on the resource question, so with the single strand of intelligence that was assessed, we had a sergeant and 8 constables on special duty to try and be ready to mitigate any of the issues that may or may not come along. Obviously this is, as several people have said, something unprecedented. We've not seen a coursing event like this. We just haven't. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's the fact. We haven't seen something like this in Cambridgeshire. So to prepare for that on one piece of intelligence is difficult. So the 1 and 8, it's not just a Manea community. I'm not decrying that at all, but it happened in various other bits of Fenland and East Cambs as well. On a daily basis, we have, as the chief says, 48 response officers across the county. That's the resourcing model that we have. In a day, we have approximately 450 incidents, some more, some less. Over the weekend, probably more than that. That's the level of incident demand that we deal with. So, how we divvy those up has to be done through the first port of call, which is the force control room, to assess where we send the resources and how fast we send them. Did we get it right on this occasion? No, we didn't. Absolutely not. Some of the stories you just told me, I wouldn't expect that from a 999 call. And I'm not blaming people. I don't know the whys and the wherefores of why that happened. But if somebody's telling me, as you did, Matthew, I've got 70 people on my land committing crime, and I've got a family who are scared and they're damaging my land, I would expect an immediate response to that. Yeah.
I'm here to see someone.
And that's unacceptable. That is just unacceptable.
Okay, can we move on?
Right, so I'm Maureen Davis and I'm the councillor for Wimbledon and Doddington. You've mentioned that you've looked at call handling. There is something seriously wrong with call handling and it's not being monitored properly because you just didn't join up the dots. When you've got these amount of calls coming in, these are not individual, and it could be seen pretty quickly that they weren't individual. This was an attack on a community. This was a criminal attack. This wasn't about hair coursing. Hair coursing we're used to dealing with, we see it all the time, and we can report it in that way. This was not hair coursing, this was just criminal damage, and it was a criminal act.
I'm a Manea resident. I think if you're just honest, and be honest with us, if this happened next weekend, what would you do about it? Because I can just see it happening again, and there'll be nothing urgently, because there's nobody on duty. How many officers did you have for South Fenland and East Cambs on duty, able to respond? And it's firstly, it's no good responding in a small hatchback as well, which is what happens very often. These people have got 4x4s going across fields. Your hatchback would go 10 yards and it'd be stuck. And you know that as well as we do. You mentioned, I think the Crime Commissioner mentioned about funding. Over the last few years, the police forces across the country have been cut. 20,000 officers have been mentioned. Cambridgeshire was part of that probably. So to say, about resources, in a few weeks' time we're going to have community charge come through. We're going to have community charge come through, and no doubt the precepts are all going to go up again. Well, what benefit do we get from them?
Thank you. Just pass it along.
I rang 999 when Witcham Toll petrol station was being done over. I got told it wasn't an emergency, call 101. Also, I had an incident at my house on the 6th of November where I got burgled. My 13-year-old son nearly died, and my partner. It took you so long to get there, and you released them out on bail. Is this what's going to happen with these lot?
If they have a text.
Yeah, of course. So, first of all, Maureen, I agree with you. We should have joined the dots. We should have responded as a community, across the community. It isn't just hair coursing. I think we've heard expressions of criminality, abhorrentness, attack on societies. We could describe it any way we want. Hair coursing almost diminishes what happened at the weekend. I fully accept that. And as I said, we will review those 999 calls to see where we've got it wrong. And I assure you we will do that. In terms of the resources for this weekend, we have reassessed the resources. Apologies, can you hear me now? Yeah, sorry. I can't turn the volume up, sir. I'm not that technical. If I hold it a bit closer, then excuse if I dip in and out. But the resources this weekend have been assessed. So we will do our utmost that this will not happen again this weekend. We've got various tactics that we've reviewed, we can employ, we can review and call in. And I will do my damnedest to ensure that this doesn't happen this weekend, that is for sure.
They knew about mine beforehand,
Okay, thank you. I think we've heard the answer. Whether we agree or disagree, I think we do need to move on. We've got other people with questions. So, if you don't mind, we'll now move on to this gentleman first, and then there's three here.
Good to go. My name is David Newling. I'm in the north of the county. It seems to me we've had several comments about lack of funding, etc. Now, Commissioner and Chief Constable, it's your duty to look and protect law and order in this county. That's your job. You agree? Now, what we're hearing here, we've got a complete breakdown of law and order. It's gone too far. You need to take that. So go to your people above you. You tell them that in your county the law and order has gone, and you need extra funds to put it right. You tell them.
Good afternoon, Steve Emery. I'm a former parish councillor. We've heard all the farmers say that they had no response from the police Saturday morning. Can I just ask the Chief Commissioner what you was doing Saturday morning?
Good afternoon. My name is Mick Smith, and I've been privileged to live in this village. It's a lovely, peaceful village. I'm also ashamed to admit that I'm ex-job. And what I've heard this morning, this afternoon, and what I saw this weekend disgusts me. I'm ashamed to say that I was a copper before your time, Chief, but I was a detective, retired as a DCI. But I wanted to ask you, nothing about hair coursing or these vehicles, your attention and your responses to calls. My house, my home, was broken into last May. I had the pleasure of seeing a crime officer that attended an hour and 45 minutes after the call. Why? Because she came from Luton. Why does she come from Luton? I had a policewoman from Wisbech attend to Manea to do house-to-house inquiries. It took her an hour. But I'm still waiting 9 months, for the temporary detective constable attached to a burglary squad at Peter to attend my premises, to talk to me about my burglary. In my day as a practical detective, if an allocated officer did not attend a dwelling house burglary himself, it was a disciplinary offence. I'm still waiting. I can tell you his name, but I won't.
three.
Okay, the first bit in terms of funding and law and order has gone. I'll let the Commissioner answer that, but as the Commissioner has already articulated, we're doing everything possible to get more resources and more funding into this county. And as you've heard the Commissioner, we will continue to do that. What I was doing on Saturday morning, Steve, it was my weekend off and I was walking my dogs. I'm not here to lie about that, that's what I was doing. And on Sunday morning I got a call from the Commissioner, and on my day off, as you would expect, I answered that call and put in a response. I'm not going to justify why I had a weekend off, but that's what I was doing.
My missus was walking her dog and nearly got hit by the car.
Yeah, I accept that. I really accept that, but the question was, what was I doing? And I've answered the question. Mick, in terms of you being an ex-officer, I fully accept that. 32 years ago, I was a DC, and we did things differently. We do things differently now, whether they're right, whether they're wrong, whether they're for the better or for the worse, we do things differently. And in 32 years' time, we will do things even more differently, I've got no doubt. We will chat afterwards about that burglary, and I will ensure you get the response you require. In terms of the scenes of crime officer from Luton, I'm not sure whether they travelled from Luton or they were a Bedfordshire scenes of crime officer based locally here within this county. We operate a collaborated scenes of crime investigation of where Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire scenes of crime operatives work together and are based out of several locations to cover 3 counties. So it may have been a Luton, Bedfordshire scenes of crime officer. That doesn't mean to say they came all the way from Luton to address your issue.
Yeah, if I can just come in, so I think it was a direct question to me around the funding. Firstly, I'm not making excuses on behalf of the Chief Constable and Constabulary who say this is purely down to funding. I think you've heard it. The police got it wrong, badly wrong, in my view. And I will continue to have those conversations with the Chief on your behalf. That's my job, to listen to you. Coming back to that funding point, telling those people higher up, I do it on a daily basis, and I see I've got people here from my police and crime panel who will be aware of this as well. In fact, they've done it as well. They're about to write it. We're doing it day in, day out. It's a government decision. It's a political decision. But at the moment, we are probably one of the worst funded. What that actually means is, if we got the same funding as Cleveland, the Chief Constable could have 300 more police officers. And hopefully, this sort of thing does not happen. But as I say, that is not an excuse. I'm just answering your question, what am I doing about it? I'm talking to absolutely everybody who will listen, along with a few other PCCs in the same position.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got 3 more questions, or a 4th question at the end, and then we really need to move on. Okay, I've got three ladies here, then we'll move on, hopefully, that we can find a way forward.
Hello, my name's Susan Unwin and I work at Apple Green at Huntingdon Road. Now for years, I've worked there since 2007 and I've seen these hair courses come weekly at this time of year. And most of the time they drive off without paying for their fuel, which really infuriates me. I've even got to the stage of putting cones in front and the back of them to make sure that it's not easy for them to drive off. However, Saturday, I had an incident and it wasn't very nice. I'm lucky compared to some of the stories I've heard tonight. I only had 2 of these idiots, and that's all they can call them, because you could not see outside their windscreen. They had, one of the vehicles had badly damaged above their tyre. You couldn't see their registration numbers. You might say, why did I authorise it? I work on my own there. There was subway staff. But last week, 6 vehicles got seized and taken away. Those people from those vehicles headed towards Chatteris, came to our town and went to the subway staff and harassed them to try and get them a taxi home. It wasn't very pleasant. Again, this weekend we had an incident, and I did have a vulnerable person in front of me. I felt terrible that I couldn't help him in any way, because these people were throwing stuff at us, Red Bulls, everything. When they come in, they're a different category of people. They're not my usual customers that are really polite, and they have no manners. They throw stuff at you on the counter in front, and I said, would you wait, please? Then they started talking, and I realised they were Irish travellers. I've met them before because they are regular drivers, and he knew that I'd clocked him. I said, right, who's paying for the fuel for this? So then they started throwing money at me, 50s and 20s. I didn't get a chance to see it, and then I said, can you wait a minute? And they were banging on for a bag. All this happened in a space of 5 minutes. They went off, and I was trying to count the money, and I was £10 short. I was going to run after them, and I thought, nah, I don't get paid enough for this. Then I noticed the next one behind it. I thought, no, he's going to drive off. So I was going to run off and put cone in front of him to stop him. But he went off, and he's the one that had his exhaust dangling from the back. Sparks were flying. We're talking about a garage here that could possibly... So it is a threat to life. You need to take this seriously, because they went off into our high street that is covered by cameras that our town council have paid towards. And I'm telling you, I phoned 999, and I was told it wasn't an emergency, to phone 101. Okay? Now, I will admit, I did have a rural officer during the week, and I did mention to them that these hair courses are getting worse. They don't care about anyone. The way they drive in and out, or how they've missed anybody, I don't know. We have a vulnerable people site next door to our garage. So they went through the town, erratically driving. I know this for a fact, because I saw them go out. But they have given me a crime number, and they have come today for CCTV. That is the first in all the time I've been there. So something is being done.
So it's not just this weekend, but Cambridgeshire Police are failing Cambridgeshire people every single day. I was witness to a car hitting a number of parked cars in Chatteris this morning. The guy was about to drive off. Myself and another lady with a 9-month-old baby in the back of the car got out to stop him from driving off. I took photographs of his car and of the guy and rang 999 and was told the police will not attend. You need to knock on locals' doors to see if you can find who the car belongs to. I know now, this happened at 10 o'clock this morning, I now have got a guy's address. I know that he's a drunk driver, I know that he has had his licence taken off of him, I know that he does drugs on a regular basis. But why should I be the one doing your job?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm an ex-police officer myself. I'm a Manea resident. We have a small hold up the road. This is 3 years ago, and I'm still waiting for police to come. The hair coursers came onto our land. It was a Friday evening. Myself and my husband were looking the barns and the tractors and everything away. There was 4 of them with 2 dogs. They came on and asked to take our van, or could my husband give them a lift to Manea. Ex-copper came out, not really afraid. I told him to jog on. I knew exactly who they were. They wouldn't. They then threatened to burn our house down if I called the police. So my husband was trying to calm them down and asked them politely to leave. I had 3 young children at the time, one of them which was hysterical. I then called the police and was told, have they actually assaulted myself and my husband? At which point I swore quite a lot, put the phone down on them, and frog marched them off my land and made sure they were the hell gone away. They then said they were going to return and burn our house down. Since then I've got a German Shepherd because the police haven't come. And 2 weeks ago, my 17-year-old son, he had a teenage fit, as in was telling me he was going out, and I told him he wasn't. My husband was away in Spain, out of the country. I said, right, I'm going to call the police. I called the police. I had 5 officers, 2 police cars in my house. I did tell him at the time, because I know it was not a domestic, he wasn't violent, I just needed your help, my husband is away, and I was trying to do the right thing to stop him driving and killing somebody else because he just had a teenage meltdown. First time ever. They were very good, all 5 officers. They calmed him down, calmed the situation down. We spun I told them ex police, everything was lovely, they were good officers. Within 72 hours I had firearms unit at my house, and another police officer, PC 944, 2 police cars, 2 firearms police officers, unannounced. I wasn't told that anybody was coming. They have now confiscated my husband's firearms, that he's had a clean licence for 30 years, holding his licence, saying that they were in fear. He was in Spain with his keys. We don't have any access because we follow all the rules, and they took our firearms because, I don't actually know, because the firearms officers with their guns in my house were telling me they didn't know why they were taking them, just that they'd had an incident. There was an incident here last Friday where my son kicked off, not violently, he's not a violent boy, I just needed help. I did not want him to drive in Manea and hurt himself or anybody else. His guns have now gone, and we don't know if they're getting them back. The firearms unit or the licensing people have emailed us back going they will have to look into it, and maybe that he will not get them back after 35 years of a clean licence, ex-police officer. So within 72 hours, I've had 8 police officers in my home, a firearms unit and 5 police cars. Embarrassing. Ex-police officer, that's why.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to that, please?
Yes, first of all, Susan, look, I can really understand where you're coming from on that. I was at, as I said, March Police Station this morning, and I know officers were dispatched to get that CCTV. The question, why should you be doing our job? You shouldn't. We should be doing our job. And on the vast majority of occasions we do, but on some occasions we clearly don't, and we need to follow that up. And in relation to, I don't know where the lady's, apologies, whether the lady on the, I knew where that story was going. And again, I can't defend it. I'll look into it, but I can't defend it.
It means you have got resource.
They done the same to us.
That's my point. You found all that resource on the Friday night when it's a busy night. You've got resource. On Tuesday, nobody rings. Now, if I hadn't been there, your 2 armed officers and your PC would have had to drive away, waste of time, go and do something else, come back, knock on the door another day. Firearms licensing, have my mobile number. Nobody rings. You waste time. You lose so much time. How would that be efficient? 3 officers, 2 firearms, just turn up on an off chance that somebody might be in at 9:30 in the morning.
Okay, obviously we've heard, we need to move this on as well. There are other people who want to speak.
Okay, I think I've answered the questions if I've not mistaken.
But this is a valid point it's just raised, because you talked about that you was made aware of an incident that possibly could have happened 24 hours before it actually happened. Okay? With our trend of haircutting in the area. So these people are opportunists, they look around, they see what's going on, they see that this is a vulnerable area. They took advantage of that. On top of that, you then said that you had other things going on Saturday.
No, sorry, we want to move this on. I think we've heard. Sorry, if you.
What are you going to be doing today, going forward, to make sure this doesn't happen next week?
Okay, well, what I was saying, when I heard about the incident, within 24 hours, I'd spoken to the Commissioner, to our area commander, to our leader of our council, to the councillors affected, to some of those who had suffered the crime, and I arranged within 48 hours a public meeting where we that someone could have been killed, that if this happens again, someone may well be killed, and that it was important that we had the most senior people come and hear directly from you. And I think that's the job of an MP, is to make sure that happens. So the police are operationally independent. Likewise, we've heard on funding. We had a debate in Parliament where Ben, the MP for Huntingdon, and I made the case just last month. So if someone wants to see, that's not hindsight post this incident. We're making this case. We do have 200 more officers than a couple of years ago, but the reason we suffer is because our population has grown faster than other areas, and that is what Darryl and I have been lobbying the Home Office to address, to better reflect the population growth of Cambridgeshire, which is where we get most penalised. But for me, my job, given the police are operational independent, I can't tell them what to do. But what I wanted to ensure that residents who have raised concerns with me, who don't feel that when they're calling 999, they're getting the response that they should be, and I totally agree, it is a problem, and that's why I think it is important that Nick, Darryl and others are here, and I think to have that within 48 hours I think is a positive step, and we've already heard commitments on, I'll run through the actions at the end, but that this will be a force-led investigation, that there will be clarity on the resource allocation on the day, various other actions, but I'll run through those at the end. But I think it is important that, Nick, you come here and not passed it to someone else, and I would like to commend you for doing that, because you've come and faced the music direct.
Okay, so we've got 3 more questions, and then I think we'll move on from sort of questions and answering. So,
okay, thank you, Charlie, for the opportunity. I'm a Manea resident, Janet O'Keefe, the parish councillor. I've got a question, but it's actually in several parts because it is to do with funding, and it may bridge the stories that we've heard today of our current situation. We really welcome this meeting, but we wish that it wasn't happening in such circumstances, really. I think we're also aware that all our statutory services have been starved of resources by the previous governments and austerity. But the questions are about the new funding that's coming through. So, we know that there is a commitment to prioritising rural crime through an updated national rural crime strategy. So I'd like to ask if you are aware of any specific resources or changes that residents in Fenland can expect to see to address these incidents more effectively. We have a pledge to increase police visibility and staffing in rural areas, and I would like to ask if this area will be getting additional officers or funding to help tackle these organised criminal activities. There is an organised crime task force, and I'd like to know how this will work locally and what measures are being implemented to ensure that Fenland isn't targeted by these groups again, as residents have mentioned to you.
I think 3 questions, I think we'll agree.
Well, it is all a part of the funding, so if there are other...
Support comes from the Labour Party, is what it is.
Right.
Richard Angwood, local farmer. I think the one question you have yet to answer that has been asked in different ways several times was who was on duty, who was actually sent to this area. You have a wonderful RCAT team. As a farmer, we know full well that that team has done excellent work over the years, and it is championed within the country as a county force. Were they on duty? Were they sent? If they weren't, why weren't they sent? In the future, are they able to be deployed rapidly if we need them? Please answer those questions. Everyone wants to know who was actually appealed.
If you'd like to respond. Okay, the command structure of who was actually on duty on any force on any given day is dictated through what we call a goal structure. So a superintendent or above is over the force tactically, operationally each day, 24/7.
Over the weekend period, that's no different, and we had a detective superintendent in charge on duty over the weekend, in charge of resources and the deployment of resources. Below that officer is what's termed a silver commander. There's 2 silver commanders there at chief inspector level, and above both of those we have what is called NPCC on call. NPCC acronyms, we love policing in acronyms. It's the National Chief Police Council, and that is an officer either at a chief officer level who I have delegated down to cover that on-call facility. On this weekend it was a detective chief superintendent. In terms of resources, I've already stated, and Ben has, in terms of response officers, not CID, not neighbourhood crimes, neighbourhood officers, apologies, we had 49 officers on duty on response. I've already articulated the seriousness of incidents which occurred across the county, as well as the daily normal business. In answer to that lady's question over there, did I prioritise, or did that person prioritise this seriousness over hair coursing, this serious an incident? I think we've already described it was not simply hair coursing. This was organised criminality of a serious nature. And I've already, I think, articulated on several occasions, did we get it right? No, we didn't. The resources that were allocated on that single strand of intelligence, as Ben has said, is 1 sergeant and 8 officers in addition to the rest of the officers over the county. RCAT, Rural Crime Action Team, why didn't they respond? They were not on duty. They were not on duty because they cannot be on duty 24 hours a day. There is a sergeant allocated to that rural crime team, as you well know, and there are 8 officers and 1 PCSO. They simply cannot be on duty 24 hours a day. Had they been on, they would have been sent, but they were not on duty. Could I have deployed them at the weekend if the intelligence was stronger, if we needed them, if we needed to up resources over that weekend, but we have to make an assessment, then they were not allocated a duty over the weekend. It was part of their shift pattern, it was part of their rest day pattern. And yes, when they're on duty, they do a fantastic job and they support the rural communities as best they can. But they have a county-wide remit. Would I like 2 RCATs? Would I like 3 RCATs? Of course I would. I'm sure you would. But as we've already heard, I have the resources that I have to put across a huge amount of demand. Most of the demand you don't actually see. And I hear at community meetings about, you quite rightly articulate around visibility. Of course, that's a priority of the Commissioner. That's a priority of myself. I don't know the detail around the rural crime strategy. Are there extra resources allocated to Cambridgeshire? I would imagine there are, but there is no detail behind the neighbourhood policing guarantee, the 13,000 additional officers, PCSOs or specials, which you may have heard the current government say. We have yet to await that detail as a constabulary. So hopefully that answers the questions. I'll just hand over to Ben.
There's just one more thing around the strategy. There's a national meeting next week around wildlife crime, rural crime. We'll be going to that. The senior investigating officer is linked into the National Wildlife Crime Unit in relation to this, accepting that I'm not saying this is just wildlife crime, of course it's bigger than that, but we have tapped into regional resources as well for this.
I've just got a quick comment and one question if possible. Now, each and every one of you guys out there, I've said at the start that I'm the chairman of Rural and Farming. Now I motioned something through council a few months ago that if any of my farmers have problems and issues with their firearms tickets, whether it be through mental health issues, whatever, you contact me. I and Susan down the front here, who's also a councillor, we will deal with council and with the police for you. I will not be fobbed off through guys losing their shotgun and firearms tickets through no actual serious purpose. But the question I've got for the Chief Constable is, we've heard about this piece of evidence regarding the weekend. Can I ask, is that the actual telephone that you took off the hair courser last weekend in Ramsey St Mary's that have got all the dates, times and details on of the meetings this weekend?
the single strand of intelligence didn't, as far as I know, come from that source. I've heard before the meeting started. I heard various, as I said at the beginning, around rumour or misinformation or perception out there of where information was fed into police. That didn't occur. We had one single strand of intelligence, as I've been briefed this morning, and it wasn't as you articulated.
Okay, we're going to take 3 more questions and then we're going to move on.
Thanks. Ken Goodyear, I farm on the county boundary at Tipsend, both sides of the boundary, and also chair at Welland. I got a phone call around about 10 o'clock on Saturday morning saying that hare coursers had congregated about 30 and were heading through the village, heading our way. And then it got reported on the Welney Facebook page that there was 30 cars tearing through Welney. I think they went through 2 or 3 times. They came on our little road in Tipsend, I think it was after lunch. And I believe that I was told that there were police cars shadowing them. So I could only assume that this would be Norfolk Police. When Norfolk Police got to Tipsend, did they abandon following them? Was there any close cooperation with Norfolk? Could they have carried on? Have you spoken to Norfolk? Because that's where we understand it started, at 10 Mile Bank at Water Sunrise.
Hello, yes, Gordon Beacon, I live in the village. We just heard talk of resources not being available 24 hours. Now, obviously this situation happened over a weekend and could well happen. We don't know whether it's going to happen again, but can we get some level of assurance that if it does happen on a weekend, we can get resources to deal with the situation?
Yeah, hi there. I think I speak on behalf of everybody here that probably none of us feel safe. You know, we all feel uneasy now. I think it's been reported, and we've been made quite aware that there was fire engines damaged amongst all this as well. But it was reported that police were called by your colleagues at the fire service, and they didn't attend. Now, if you can't attend to your own emergency services colleagues, then what are you going to do to make us feel safe?
Can I just follow that up, because we'd like to bring this to a close now. One other observation from Manea, we had a vehicle dumped. 999 call, don't touch it, wait 2 hours, there'll be a Socko there. 24 hours later, it was still there. The one in the one in outside Cisco's was still there this morning. How are we going to catch these guys if half the forensic evidence has disappeared anyway? How are you going to bring a prosecution? It's very confusing in its messages.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And in terms of the evidence which could be captured on vehicles, then of course we could follow up on that. What I will say is that there is other lines of inquiry, particularly around photographic evidence, video evidence, which is probably more stronger than actually someone being fingerprints or DNA within a vehicle, because that could have occurred at any particular time. What's really important is that we capture the evidence of them actually committing the criminality. But I do take the point. In terms of, Ken, your point around Norfolk, yes, I have personally spoken to Norfolk. And regularly, do our officers work cross-border? Yes, they do. Do they communicate with each other? Yes, they do. And do they share intelligence? Yes, they do. The criminality, as we well know, does not pay cognizance to any county board, any county boundary. It's not like the Dukes of Hazzard. We do go over the county border to pursue crime, I can assure you. I get the feeling, the sentiment, you don't feel safe. In relation to the fire engines, my information is, and this is absolutely not a criticism of our fellow colleagues in the emergency services, there's no formal call coming from the fire service. We have been in contact with the fire service and we will follow that up. But my understanding is it did not affect their ability to respond to any emergency calls the fire service had.
But it's still damage to emergency services property?
Absolutely. And in order to follow that up, we need the cooperation of our colleagues in other emergency services.
Okay, so I think we'll bring this to a close now. One thing, on most of the seats you'll find the form. Could you please just fill it out, so with an email address or whatever, so we can keep you updated after this meeting, because this is a meeting, but I'm sure going forward we may be meeting again, hopefully with more positive news. However, we want to take it forward. Okay.
That's where we need some more clarity. I think it was welcome, Chief Constable, to get a commitment that this will be a force-led investigation, and the area commander said that potentially in the next few days that there could be possible further information. I know that's subject to the investigation, but that to me suggests that the importance of getting resource allocated to this. I think there were specific questions from Maureen and others on the helicopter. Was a request made? It's a separate issue then whether other areas were prioritised, and if so, why. But certainly if a request wasn't made, that then points to some questions around the call handling. What was the interaction with Norfolk? What was the call handling there? Fifthly, I think there's some lessons around the intelligence. Clearly, why was it only one bit of intelligence? These people were clearly coordinated. This was clearly planned. People turn up in such numbers with such vehicles in balaclavas and so forth. That takes some coordination, I would have thought, and it's not the sort of thing that people who do it as a one-off. So these are probably people that are known to the police. And then sixthly, there were questions around not just this weekend's resource, and I welcome the commitment that you personally gave to additional focus this weekend, but also in terms of future weekends. And I think that also plays into the 999 calls and the call handling and some of the personal safety issues. And then there were some specific case studies that were raised. Now I'm very conscious a meeting like this can be quite A meeting like this can be quite intimidating for some people that may have had a question or something that they wanted to raise but just didn't feel able to in a setting like this. So if anyone does, please get in touch with me after the meeting through my office, and I will ensure that that is then followed up with the Chief Constable or the Commissioner, or liaising with the NFU and councillors. But I think, that, as I said earlier, I think you coming in person and fronting this and dealing with some very legitimate but some very harrowing stories is important when you are discussing with your senior officers how you allocate. Clearly what's happened is unacceptable, and I think the force of the stories and the attendance today convey that, and I think it's been helpful to hear you be open about the fact mistakes clearly were made and that lessons need to be learnt. And you also said at the start you want to work with us. In my experience, we want to work with you. But there's real concerns, and that's what the meeting today was called for, to air those, and hopefully lessons can be learnt and we can move forward. So thank you everyone for coming. Clearly there's a lot of further work that we all collectively need to do, but I think by coming in such numbers, I think it's very helpful with senior police colleagues that they've heard from you direct, and working with Charlie, and thank you Charlie for all you've done to arrange this evening, but working with you, Tim, and local councillors, we assure you we will follow up both with the Commissioner and the Chief Constable moving forward. Charlie.